Today I am going to show you how to crochet these adorable Mickey and Minnie pumpkins. These are the perfect Halloween project if you love Disney and all things pumpkin. We'll go step by step through the pumpkin, the stem, vine, bow, and ears, and then at the end we will assemble everything together. If you are new here, I share lots of cute and magical crochet patterns. Make sure you subscribe and like this video so you don't miss out on future patterns. For materials today, I am using a weight 4, and this is a worsted yarn. You're going to need an orange, a green, and a lighter brown for the stem. And then for our hook, we're going to be using a US 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need some scissors, a yarn needle, and you might want to also grab a stitch marker, and then you'll need some fiberfill to stuff our project with. So let's grab all of our supplies and we'll get started. Alright, so we are going to start with the main part of our pumpkin, so this part here, and it's really simple to do. We're going to start out by making a slip knot. After we have that on our hook, you're then going to chain 26. Alright, so after you have your chain of 26 made, we're going to start in the second chain from our hook. So we're going to skip this first chain, that is our turning chain, and then starting in our second chain there, we're going to half double crochet across. So to make your first half double crochet, you're going to yarn over, and then you'll insert your hook into that second chain. You're going to yarn over and pull through a loop. You're then going to have 3 loops on your hook, and then you're just going to yarn over and then pull that through all 3 loops. And that is 1 half double crochet. So I'll show you that again slowly. You're just going to be putting 1 half double crochet in each chain across. Alright, so you'll just repeat that, making a 1 half double crochet in each chain across, and you will have a total of 25 half double crochets made at the end of row number 1. We now have row number 1 complete, so to move on to row number 2, after your last half double crochet, you're just going to make a chain of 1, and then you're going to turn your piece over. So for the rest of this pattern with the rows, we're going to be working in the back loop only. So normally when you make your stitch, you're just going to go under both loops, and you can see that each stitch kind of makes a V. You would go under both of those. For going under the back loop, you're going to go in between the V. So you'll just insert your hook in between the 2 sides of the V under that back one only. So this front one is your front loop, and this one in the back is your back loop. So every stitch is going to be worked in that back loop only. So you're going to make your first half double crochet, insert your hook in between the 2 loops coming under that back one only, and then make your first half double crochet. And then you're just going to repeat that across, just remembering to go into that back loop only. And we're doing that because it makes a kind of ribbed look for our pumpkin, and just kind of a little bit more of a rustic look, I think, and it just looks a little bit nicer. So continue to work your half double crochets across in the back loop only for row number 2. And again, you will have a total of 25 half double crochets. Okay, so we have now completed row number 2. So now we're just going to repeat exactly what we did in row number 2 for a total of 36 rows. So at the end of each row, you will chain 1 and then turn your piece over. And then again, you're going to make your half double crochets across in the back loop only. So at this point, you can go ahead and just pause the video, complete your 36 rows, and when we get done with that, you can go ahead and continue with the video, and I will show you to finish that off. And then next we will be making the stem, so you will need your brown yarn for that. All right, once you come to your last row, so row 36, we're going to go ahead and just kind of pull out a little bit of a loop there. And then you're going to want to go ahead and cut your yarn very long so that you have quite a tail, as we will be using this to sew the ends of the pumpkin together and also to shape our pumpkin. Once you have that done, you're going to just pull that length of yarn through that loop and then give that a tug to secure that. Okay, and this is what that should look like once it is done. So this is the main part of our pumpkin finished. We're going to go ahead and just set this aside and we'll make our stem next. At the end, I will show you how to assemble everything and complete our pumpkin. Okay, so we have our brown yarn and we're again going to be using the same size hook throughout the entire pattern. So to make our stem here at the top, we're going to start by making a magic ring. So to do this, I lay the end of the yarn over 3 fingers and then just wrap that around, crossing over the top. Once you have that there, kind of hold that together, take your hook and go underneath. You're going to grab that top piece of yarn and pull up a loop. Then you're just going to hold that onto the hook and remove it from your fingers. And then you're just going to chain 1. And that secures our ring. So now that we have our ring made, we're going to go ahead and put 6 single crochets inside of the ring. So you're just going to insert your hook into the ring, grab your loop and pull that up. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. That creates our very first single crochet, and now you're going to go ahead and repeat that and make 5 more. And you are crocheting over both pieces of yarn here, the tails here. All right, so now we have 6 single crochets made. You're going to take that end of that tail and you're just going to pull on that to close that opening. And that finishes round number 1. We will not be joining at the end of these rounds. We're just going to work a continuous round. So at this point, if you want to go ahead and grab your stitch marker, I always put mine at the very last stitch of each round, but some people put theirs at the first. It's just completely up to you on your preference. So moving on to round number 2, we're going to increase a round. That just means we're going to go into our first stitch here and make 1 single crochet, and then we're going to go into the same stitch and make a second single crochet. So when you increase, you're putting 2 stitches into 1. Okay, so then in your second stitch, you're going to make 2 more single crochets. You'll just continue that around. At the end of round number 2, you should have 12 total single crochets. And then if you need to kind of pull on that tail a little bit more to tighten that center completely, you go ahead and do that now. All right, so round number 3, we're going to start by making 1 single crochet in the first stitch. And then in the second stitch, we're going to increase. So we'll put our 2 single crochets in that 1 stitch. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern around. So 1 single crochet and then increase. At the end of round 3, you will have a total of 18 single crochets made. Moving on to round number 4, we're just going to single crochet around, but for this round we are going to do it in the back loop only. So just like we did on our pumpkin, instead of going under both loops, we're just going to go in between the loops and insert our hook underneath that back loop only. And you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each back loop around. So you'll still have 18 total single crochets at the end of round number 4. And by working in the back loop only, it gives us a little bit of an edge to the very top of our stem here. All right, so that's what that should look like so far. So now for rounds 5 through 10, we're just going to single crochet around, and you'll just go under both loops like normal. 1 single crochet in each stitch around for a total of 18 single crochets for each round. So again, that's rounds 5 through 10. Go ahead and work on your stem through round 10, and then I'll show you how to finish that off, and then next we will go ahead and make the ears. All right, so we have finished our stem, so you're just going to go ahead and insert your hook into that next stitch there and pull up a loop, and then pull that through the loop on your hook, creating a slip stitch. Okay, once you're done with that, you're going to cut just a little bit longer of a tail, as we're going to use that to sew that onto the top of our pumpkin. So next you're going to want to grab your orange yarn again, and we're going to go ahead and make both of the ears for our pumpkin. All right, so for each ear, we're going to start it the same way by making our magic ring. And then in our ring, we're going to make 6 single crochets. All right, once you have your 6 made, you'll just pull on that tail to close that opening. So again, just like the stem for round number 2, we're going to go ahead and increase around. So you're going to put 2 single crochets in each stitch around, and that's going to give you a total of 12 single crochets at the end of round number 2. Moving on to round number 3, just like the top of the stem, we're going to start by making 1 single crochet, and then we're going to increase in that next stitch. And you'll just repeat that around, so 1 single crochet and increase for a total of 18 single crochets. Moving on to round number 4, we're going to start by making 1 single crochet in the first stitch. Then we're going to increase in the next. After that, we're going to switch to doing 2 single crochets and then increase. So you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, and then in the third stitch, you'll make your increase. So you're going to repeat that around, so 2 single crochets and then increase. At the end of this round, after your last increase is made, you're going to have 1 stitch left. You're just going to put 1 single crochet in that very last stitch. And this is going to give you a total of 24 single crochets. For round 5, we are going to make 3 single crochets. So 1 in each of the first 3 stitches. And then in the 4th stitch, we'll make our increase. So again, you'll just repeat that around. So 3 single crochets and then increase for a total of 30 single crochets. And round 6 is going to be our very last increase round. So we're going to start out by making 2 single crochets. And then you're going to increase in that third stitch. And then after that, we're going to switch to making 4 single crochets. Okay, after your 4 single crochets, you're going to make your increase. So repeat that around, so 4 single crochets and increase. After your last increase is made, you're going to have 2 stitches left. You're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of those last 2 stitches. And this is going to give you a total of 36 single crochets at the end of round number 6. All right, so this is the main part of the ear finish. We are going to do one more round, and for round number 7, we're going to slip stitch around, but we're going to be doing that in the front loop only. So before we were working in the back loop only, we went between the 2 stitches there. or the 2 loops. This time you're just going to go underneath that front one. And you're just going to slip stitch around. And this just creates a nice little edge for our ears. Just make sure that you're not slip stitching too tightly, and keep your slip stitches pretty even around. You don't want like a tight one and then a loose one, and you want them just kind of an even slip stitching around. All right, so go ahead and slip stitch around, and I will then show you how to finish it off. And then you can go ahead and pause and make your second ear and rewatch that if you need to. After that, we will be making the vine, and then I will show you how to make the little bow if you want to make a mini pumpkin. All right, now that we have the ear complete, you're going to go ahead and just cut a longer tail again so that we can sew that onto our pumpkin at the end. Before we move on, let's go ahead and weave in the end here of our beginning tail. It just kind of gets it out of our way, and then we don't have to worry about that later. So I just take my yarn needle and just come up through some stitches, maybe about 4 rows up, and then I come back again through the same thing, and that just kind of weaves that in so it doesn't come undone. And then you'll just snip that off, and that is ready. So go ahead and make your second ear, and then we will move on to the vine. So we are now ready to go ahead and make the little vine for our pumpkin here. And this is really simple to do. We're going to start out by making a slip knot. And then you're going to make a chain of 13. After you have your chain made, we're going to start in that second chain from our hook, and you're going to put 2 single crochets in each stitch across. So we'll double the amount of stitches. So this will give you a total of 24 single crochets at the end of this vine. So again, you're putting 2 single crochets or an increase in each stitch across. And by putting 2 into each chain, you're making it to where it's going to start curling up on itself, and that's the look that we want to create our little vine. Once you come to the end of your vine here, just again go ahead and cut a little bit longer of a tail so that we can use that to sew. And then you're just going to weave in that beginning tail just like we did on the ears. So just kind of weave that through back and forth a couple times. All right, to start our hair bow, we're going to start again by making a slip knot. And then you're going to make a chain of 6. Okay, once you have your chain of 6, you're going to start in that second chain from your hook and just single crochet across, so 1 in each stitch. And this is going to give you a total of 5 single crochets at the end of this row. At the end of your row, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and then you're simply going to just single crochet across. So just going under both loops like normal, 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So each row will be 5 single crochets, and you're going to do this for a total of 24 rows. So go ahead and complete your 24 rows for the bow, and then when you get done, we're going to go ahead and assemble the bow. It's very simple to do. We'll do that real quick. And then at that point, we will be finished crocheting all of our pieces. So then we will go ahead and move on to the assembly part of our pattern. Once all your rows are finished, you are going to want to cut a pretty long tail for the bow, as we're going to use this to form the center part of the bow as well. So once you have that done, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and just weave in that beginning tail that we started with, and just go through that first row back and forth a couple of times. Once that's done, go ahead and attach your needle to the long length of yarn, and then we're going to fold the piece in half like so, and then you're just going to go through one loop on one side and the corresponding loop on the other, and you're just going to sew across those two sides, connecting both of them together. So you'll do this a total of 5 times until you get to the other side. All right, once you have that completed, you're going to go ahead and just kind of fold the piece the other way so that the seam that you just made is on the very back. And then you're going to take that length of yarn and you're just going to wrap it around the center tightly, making that bow shape that you want. And you'll do this quite a few times until you're happy with the size of the center that you're wanting. So if you want it a little bit bigger, you can wrap a few more times and just keep going around until you get it the way you want it. So I think that looks pretty good to me. So once you're done with that, you're going to take your needle and just go underneath the back of the piece, the back of the bow, and pull that through. And then I go again one more time, kind of going through the middle of the centerpiece here. And this is just going to get that good and secure before we sew that on. All right, so that is our bow finished. So we can go ahead and start the assembly of our Mickey pumpkin. All right, so at this point we are ready to start our assembly of our Mickey pumpkin. So the first thing we're going to do is that first beginning short tail that you have, go ahead and weave that in just so that's out of your way once we start sewing the rest of it together. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and put your long length of yarn onto your needle here. And then we're going to fold the piece in half so the two ends meet each other, just like this. Okay, and then we're going to work across, sewing it together. So you're going to go through the back loop of your last row here. So just go in between those two loops, and then you'll just grab the corresponding loop on the first, from our first chain that we made for our pumpkin. And you're just going to sew that through, and then you'll just go all the way across, matching up each stitch until you get to the other end. All right, so this is what that should look like all sewn together. So our next step is going to be to close the two ends. So we're going to start just with one end, and we're basically going to cinch this together kind of like a drawstring. So you're just going to go up through one stitch, and then you're going to come out the next. And then you can just keep that on the same needle here. So out, or in and out, and then in and out. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just close stitches together. And keep doing that until you have quite a few on your needle. And then you can just pull that through. And then you're going to pull that tight. And then you're just going to keep doing that until you get back to the beginning. So in and out, in and out, in and out, and then pull that through. All right, so this is what that should look like, and there is still a little bit of an opening, so all you need to do is take your needle and go through kind of both sides of the opening there and just sew across those, and that'll just completely close that opening for you so you don't have a hole at the bottom. All right, so now that we have the one end completely closed, you're just going to take your yarn needle and you're going to weave it up through one of the rows here, all the way until you get to the other side. So just go up as far as you can and then pull that out. And then just keep going until you get to the other end and to where it's coming out of this opening. All right, so now we are ready to go ahead and close the top of our pumpkin, and we're going to do it in the exact same way that we did the bottom. So you're just going to go in and out, and then drawstring that closed. So once you get about halfway around, we're going to stop and go ahead and add some fiberfill to our pumpkin. Okay, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and add some fiberfill, just making sure you don't have any coming out the top, and then you can always add a little bit more each time you sew more of the opening closed and get that stuffed as much as you want. And then once you have it almost all the way closed, you can add a little bit more at the end. So go ahead and stuff that, and then go ahead and finish doing your drawstring effect here to get that closed. Finish topping off with your fiberfill, and then you'll just sew the top closed just like you did with the bottom. All right, so now we've got that closed, and it's okay if it doesn't look perfect or there's a little bit of fiberfill sticking out. We're going to be covering that with our stem, so you're not going to see this part of our pumpkin. So now we're going to create a few indents into our pumpkin. So you're going to stick your needle right in the middle of the top, and you're going to come out of the bottom right in the center. All right, and then you're just going to pull that all the way through, and then you're going to wrap it around one of the sides here, or on the side here. Just find where you want your first indent to be, and then you're going to go back through the center and out through the bottom. And you're just going to repeat that with however many indents that you want to make. When you do that, you're just going to kind of pull a little bit so that's nice and snug. And then you're just going to create as many indents as you want. And then once you're done with that, you're just going to go ahead and weave in your ends. All right, so the next step is to go ahead and sew our stem on to the very top of our pumpkin, and you're just going to want to add a little bit of fiberfill to that. And then you'll just find the top of your pumpkin here, and then you'll just find the top of your pumpkin, and you're going to place that in the center. And then to sew that on, you're just going to grab a stitch on the pumpkin and then come up through the next stitch on the stem. And then you'll just do that all the way around, working around in each stitch until you get back to the beginning, and then you'll weave your end in through the stem itself. So make sure when you're weaving your ends in, you're doing it through the same color that you're sewing with. So the next step is going to be to sew the ears on, and I use about 4 to 5 stitches along the bottom of the ear to sew that onto the pumpkin. So you're going to find where you want that to be placed at, and then just like before, you're going to grab a stitch on the pumpkin and come up through a stitch on the ear, and you'll do that across about 4 to 5 stitches on the ear. Once you get your last one done, you're going to go to the back of the ear, and then you're going to sew back across, grabbing another stitch on the pumpkin, and then come back up through the back stitch on the ear. And I find this just kind of secures the ear a little bit better so it's not flopping around. And then once you're done with that, you can just go ahead and weave in that end, either in the ear itself or through the pumpkin. All right, so this is what our pumpkin looks like so far. So now you're either going to grab your bow or your vine, and we'll get those sewn on next. So if you're sewing the vine on, you're just going to kind of put it to the side in front of one of the ears here, and just sew that on to the very base where the stem is at, and then weave in your ends through the vine, and then you are finished with your pumpkin. If you're sewing on the bow, I'll show you how to do that with this one. So I'm going to just place it right here in front of the stem, and you'll just take your yarn here where it is at the base, and then you're just going to kind of grab a stitch on the stem, and then you're going to go through the center, back of the center part of the bow that you made. where you wrapped your yarn around, and you can kind of move the ears out of the way for a minute if you need to. And then once you have that pulled through, you're going to grab another stitch on the other side of the bow here on the stem and go back through that center piece there. And then you're just going to weave those ends in through the bow itself. And there you have it, your very own Mickey and Minnie pumpkin plushies. I hope you had as much fun making these as I did. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more crochet patterns. Leave me a comment if you'd like to see more Disney-inspired products. I'd love to hear your ideas. As always, thanks for crocheting with me today, and I hope to see you in the next video.
Won't you take me home? Give me wings to fly. We can run away. Castle in the sky. Won't you take me home and give me wings to fly? We can be alone.